Welcome to Creative Vitality Jam Sessions. Here, we have intimate conversations with extraordinary dance and theater artists about reimagining creativity and supporting and building community. Creative Vitality Jam Sessions and I walk in solidarity and as allies for respect, equality, and justice. Black Lives Matter. And we will continue this until change comes. I'm Helen Pickett, and today's guests are all from the University of the Arts. They are Gracie Spina, Lucia De-Poli, Aliyah Clay, and Jamaal Bowman. One is a graduate, and the other three are on their journey in UArts. Here is Aliyah. She's just joined us. And here's Jamaal. Hi, Jamaal. And then we have Gracie and Lucia. Hi, everyone. It's so good to see you again. I've missed you. I have to say at the outset that these four young artists were all a part of a choreography that I and a woman named Sarah Hilmer, who's been on the show, we were setting one of my pieces of choreography for UArts, and they were all a part of it. And they rehearsed, and we learned it, and we were ready to go on stage, and then COVID hit. So I wanted to do this show not about what we've lost. I was really interested in hearing for these four young artists, and also, except for Lucia, who graduated this year, they're all still in process in their university education. But I wanted to approach this show with the idea of possibility. So that is how I'm going to go forward with this interview. What is the possibility? Because this is our youth. These four beautiful people are going to be the leaders and the movers and the shakers for our future. So I wanted to talk about the possibility in all of them. So first of all, welcome. I'm going to say your names again as they appear on screen for me, which is Aliyah. Hi, Aliyah. Aliyah, tell us where you're from and where you are in the world.
I'm on the East Coast. I'm from Newark, Delaware.
I'm having a hard time hearing you. Can you turn up your volume or get closer?
Yeah, I'll get a little closer.
There you go. That's great. So
Okay.
you are in Delaware?
Yeah, I'm from Delaware.
And that's where you are now?
Yep.
Great. And Jamaal Bowman.
Hi. I'm actually from Maryland, but I'm living in Philadelphia right now.
And I just wanted to bring that up. So yeah, you're at home.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Jamaal, you're actually, you've been isolating in your apartment all this time.
Yeah, somewhat. I have a roommate, so I don't feel like completely isolated from the world, but yeah.
Yeah, okay. And then Gracie Spina, where are you?
I am currently living at home in Northfield, New Jersey.
Okay, great. And Lucia.
Hello.
Hi.
I am currently in West Palm Beach, Florida, but I usually live in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
Okay, so there we are. We're all over the world. Well, East Coast, and I'm in Philadelphia. So let's see. I'm just looking at my questions because I've covered that already. So yeah, so we want to talk about possibility, and the idea is, you know, a lot of us artists also that are waylaid, including myself, have found different ways to reimagine my art in this time. And that's exactly it. We're talking about a lot of time in our hands. So I want to start there, actually. It's not a part of the questions. I thought of it this morning. That what are each of you doing? It can be one example with the extra time you have. I'll go in the reverse order now. Lucia, what, for example, are you doing in this? What is like one thing that you're doing with your possibility of time?
For me, I think taking it back to the basics for me. of things that I know, if it's mentally or physically or spiritually, to kind of connect and regroup to see how I can make the things that I don't really get to give enough attention to on the daily when I haven't had the time, if I'm always dancing in the studio or at school. So it's given me the chance to really like touch back with myself and kind of like build, I guess, a better relationship with myself, which makes me a better person, like all around, I think, and also a better dancer and thinker.
And it's great preparation for the next step. You know, when you get out into that world, having a strong base is always great for an artist. Absolutely. Gracie, what are you doing with your time?
So right now, I'm trying to spend a lot of time with my family. My father travels a lot for work, and he is currently home right now, which is amazing. So, and especially because I'm going to be moving back to Philadelphia in a couple of weeks. So I'm trying to spend a lot of time with my family, and we've been cooking and sitting out in the yard and just spending a lot of quality time together.
But you're also taking university classes, yes?
I am. I'm taking 4 summer classes right now, and each class is 3 credits. So I'm doing a lot at the moment, but the classes that I'm taking are really beautiful and relevant classes. So I'm very excited about those.
Great. Beautiful. Jamaal.
For me, I have just been like really looking for a way to use my creativity that's just been like bottled up for the past few months. So I found this website where I can make music. So I've been making a whole bunch of beats and songs that I'll probably use for my thesis. Yeah, just ways to like get me inspired.
So that's amazing. So Jamaal, do you want to be a choreographer?
Possibly.
Yeah.
Possibly, yeah.
So what you're doing, so this music could be used for many things, besides it being a great and amazing creative outlet that will make you think about dance in a different way, of course, but you're also, as you said, you could be banking music for future pieces.
Yep.
You know, it's great. It's great. Aliyah.
Hi, so I'm also taking a summer course this summer. So I've been spending a lot of time on, actually a psychology course. So it's actually really interesting. So I'm learning like about the brain and a lot of different aspects that I wouldn't have learned maybe if I took it elsewhere. So I'm just happy to be taking that. And then I've also been giving myself just little dance parties, just letting myself just feel and going outside on walks and runs and stuff, just letting myself go, not holding any limitations on myself, just experiencing what I experienced and just having a good time.
Yeah, right. Well, that sounds really beautiful, all of you. I'm happy to hear that we're kind of moving past the idea of being stuck and realizing the concept of time. And you're all so young, and this will be defining. This is a defining moment in all of your lives, and what you can do with this now will definitely plant seeds for the future. You know, I mean, I'm really excited about your age group coming out of this, because if you look at history, great art has come from periods of great distress, you know, of these because it forces us to reimagine, if you will, or it can. Okay, so I wanted to hear about from each of you how you found your way to UArts, and also what year you're in. So again, I'll just go in the reverse order. So I'll start with Aliyah.
So I'm a freshman.
But you will be a sophomore.
I will be a sophomore. Just finished my first year as a freshman. Will be a sophomore. And I had auditioned for a lot of schools. I was just keeping my options open. From Boston, I was doing like a Boston Conservatory, and then I auditioned for like Point Park. I was just trying to like feel everything out, just to see where I felt like I could fit in the most. And then coming to UArts, it was just a natural thing for me. I went to one of the spring showcases there, and after I looked at my dad, and I was like, we both looked at each other like we knew, like, this is the place. I watched the show, and I was like, Dad. He looked at me, I looked at him, and I was like, yeah, I'm coming here in the fall. So it was just kind of like that, but I was definitely open to a lot of different schools, near and far, but I was just trying to find the place that would best suit me, and it was definitely UArts. So.
Beautiful. Jamaal.
For me, it was actually a pretty easy process in finding UArts. By the way, I'm a senior. I'm going into my senior year. But UArts was the only school that I auditioned for. I found it through an internet search. I think it's because it was like in the top 10 schools. And then I came to the open house and I saw the school, I saw the teachers and the atmosphere, and I just knew that this was a school for me.
Great, Jamaal. Thank you. Gracie, how did you come to UArts?
So I actually, when I was in high school, I didn't really have, excuse me, I didn't really want to go to college. I didn't think I was going to go to college. I just thought that I was going to stay down in South Florida, which is where I grew up. And I thought I was just going to end up teaching at my home studio and all of that kind of stuff. And it was my dance team coach who actually pushed me to go to auditions and all that kind of stuff. So I auditioned for a couple places. I auditioned for Pace University, the Columbia College in Chicago, and UArts. Those are the three that I auditioned for. And through New York City Dance Alliance, I actually got a scholarship to Point Park as well. Oh. But after looking into UArts, I came to admit one, and I just fell in love with the curriculum. I fell in love with the teachers, the atmosphere, and it was the only place that I could really see myself being. Also because of the fact that UArts is not strictly like ballet and modern, it's not like a classical curriculum. And so given that, you know, where I'm so interested in contemporary and, you know, finding new ways to move and discovering different things, that was really what drew me to UArts. And so I'm very, very happy at UArts, and I couldn't see myself anywhere else.
Yeah, Lucia, before I go to you, because Lucia is the graduate here, as I said before, that is something I have found in UArts. And as you know, I have a history also with Donna, Faye, Burchfield, and quite a few of the professors there, because I earned my MFA at Hollins when she was the director and the dean there, and also Professor Thomas F. DeFrance. You know, the atmosphere that is built at UArts is one that it has very open hands, so there's a lot of generosity. It is not, you know, your typical cookie cutter, how dance is taught, which I am really, you know, people coming out of these programs are going to, again, be the people that are changing the face of how dance is taught, how dance is remembered, how dance is disseminated. And that is something I find really important about UArts, and also what is taught there. Critical theory, gender studies, you know, philosophy. This is, it makes, because we all know dancers are some of the smartest people on the face of the earth, but with this information, it's kind of an unstoppable force. That's how I really feel like the education that I got certainly earned with my MFA, but I see similar fertile ground there. I see it's really remarkable. It's a remarkable place. It's remarkable because it's evolving the soma self. You know, it's not brain versus body. It's the entire being, and I really love that. Lucia.
I attended Dreyfus School of the Arts in 2015 and 2016, and that is when I was taking a class about career studies as a senior in high school. And this was when I was beginning to think about where I planned my future. I knew that I wanted to dance. but I didn't know exactly how I was going to go about it, if it was school or auditions. And I ended up being casted in 2 guest pieces that forever like changed my life while attending that high school. And I was working with Melissa Rector, who was or is the artistic director of Crash Dance Company, who is in Philly. And my dance teacher that worked at Dreyfus School of the Arts and also Florida School for Dance Education in Palm Beach Gardens, Florida, attended UArts and knew a little bit more about Philly. So as I started to ask questions and auditions and kind of doing my own research about what curriculum was going to be diverse, but still have more foundation of like classical, like modern and jazz and ballet and what I knew, but still allowed me to grow from a place that I already was trained in.
Yeah.
And I felt like UArts was the place for me because it had all those multiple options and all these different avenues that I could go down and try it. Even if I said, oh, this isn't for me at this moment, I could at least have that opportunity to explore it. And other universities at the time, or even now, still don't offer all the things that UArts does.
Exactly. Yeah. Beautiful. All right. Thank you. So kind of hit on this, but I want to hear from you guys. You know, it's an exceptional place to study, right? Which I've heard from all of you. Agree, critical studies, like I said, theory, history, gender studies. How has this now I know, Aliyah, you're a sophomore, but I think after 1 year, there's a very good sense of things. You other 3 have more experience with yours. How has this complete education shifted your views of dance? So Jamaal, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I would say this education feels different than anything that you'd get at any other school. Their critical studies classes, yeah, it's interesting the ways in which they can connect to dance. I took a brain and behavior class my sophomore year, and it was cool to see just how much I could use that information with my movement in a weird way. Thinking about the left brain, the right brain, thinking about my frontal lobe, or how I can, how I'm actually operating, or like what is moving me, what part of my brain is moving me physically. Um, yeah, and I think that can also be applied to other majors that aren't all just dance. I think these critical studies classes can connect to many forms of art that are in the school, in the majors.
Yeah, yeah, beautiful. Gracie. So again, how has this complete idea of education shifted your views of dance?
Wow, in so many ways.
But like in one specific way, right? Yeah.
I think for me personally, I am classically trained. I did homeschooling and I trained in ballet all day, every day for about 3 years. And so once I came to UArts, I started to, with all of the classes that I was taking, it started to really challenge the way that I thought about why we move the way that we move, not only in the physical sense, but in the mental and emotional sense. And especially like Jamaal was saying, I also took that brain and behavior class. And, it's really beautiful to kind of see and understand how, as you're moving, it's not just a technique. It's not just raising the arms in fifth and doing all of this stuff that's, kind of like a solidified technique. Whereas, you know, you take those things and you have this repertoire and you have this toolbox of all of these things that you've learned in your training, and you challenge yourself to do all of these different things with it. And you challenge yourself to think of movement in a different way that can really make something beautiful and something that's never really been done before, which is what I think is so beautiful about dancing and movement is, you know, figuring out these new, like little nuances and these new ways in which your body can move. And, you know, that's something that I never really experienced growing up. I was always taught to do these things, and there was a right way and a wrong way to do them. And so, you know, learning these new things and challenging myself to step outside of that is something that's really beautiful to me. And I forgot to mention this earlier, but I'm also a senior.
Exactly.
Earlier.
2 seniors, a sophomore, well, yes, sophomore, we can say that, and a graduate. Lucia, how has this education shifted your views of dance?
For me, it completely made me have to, I'm going to use the word reimagine the way I think dance or even move my body now. Because through taking classes, whether it is movement based and you're in the studio and you're learning about the anatomy through your body in a class that's called Franklin Method, or I would be in a theories of science fiction class because I'm really interested in science fiction and learning about how that science fiction is actually kind of showing truths about what's happening in like the everyday of our reality or what we think is our reality, and kind of seeing how there's always kind of two worlds that we can like choose between or create between when like moving or dancing, whether it's from like an anatomical place or like an imagery place, or like you creating your own world like in your mind. Because I, like Gracie, was always taught to be like, this is modern, or this is ballet, or this is jazz, this is tap. And I think that those styles all began to kind of bleed together when I was at UArts, because I would find myself in a ballet class, like thinking about like a conversation I was having in my theories of science fiction class, and thinking about how it could connect to like me just doing a basic like movement with my arm, and having those personal connections for me kind of like are almost like little mnemonic devices, and they almost allow my body to like resonate movement or a feeling more, so then I can kind of have like a better understanding of like where I'm going or what I'm doing in that moment. And everything in life is very connected, and I think that UArts allows all of those things that are out here, and they kind of bring them closer. Because dance is, I feel like, very intimate with yourself, because you're the one doing a lot of the work. And I think that allowing all of those things to come closer to me allows me to, I feel like, be a full-rounded, more like thoughtful dancer, instead of just doing the movement for the sake of doing the movement.
So what I'm hearing, Aliyah, we still have to hear from you, but what I'm hearing from you throughout this conversation is that the sense of consciousness is very important. Yeah, you're dropped into yourself. So you're in a thinking state because of all of these various classes and all of the various, and the philosophy of UArts, which is what I always say when because I'm a contemporary ballet choreographer. And one of the first things I say when I go into ballet companies is that, so part of the problem is that you're separating your kinds of dance. Dance is dance is dance. If that connection can happen in your brain and body, that your classical, I'm going to say classical ballet, because there's a lot of classical training. So I'm going to say in your ballet training, don't say that this is how it looks over here, but now I'm going to try to do this. That I'm really hoping that frame of mind starts, dispersing more quickly now, because it really needs to. It needs to. So as many of you have said, the conversation of how these ideas communicate and revolve around and into each other. And a lot of that is what you're saying, I'm just using a different word, is the dropped in consciousness that dance is a complete idea of art. You know, it is not a separation. So Aliyah, how has this, so your first year, how's your first year, you know, shifted your views of dance?
Well, for me, I think pretty much what everybody has said, like everything overlaps. There's no like, this is the right way, this is the wrong way. It was just a matter of making it your own way. It wasn't like any limitations on that. We learned so much outside of dance that was something that we could bring inside of the studio practices. We learned contemporary art practices, which we called CAP. And I learned so many other artists that I was able to research, dive in, and grow a different perspective and a different avenues that can be brought into the studio. And I just felt like the views that we have on the practices that we take and the practices that we study and we research, they just kept adding on. It was no like stopping. We just kept adding on and building it in. And like, it's just something that we're going to be able to continue to put into our toolbox and take not only at school, but when we go to auditions and when we are choreographers or when we are filmmakers. It's just so much that we can do. And I felt like my views have just been opened up. Like it was like another eye that I got. So it's really interesting to see how not only UArts, but just the faculty at UArts has brought in just so much for us to bring into our world view of dance, because there's just so much to offer and there's so many places that we can take dance. And I think sometimes we limit ourselves of where we can take dance, but there's so many things that we can do with dance. So I'm just excited to see where I can take dance and see what the further I go with UArts, because I just finished my freshman year, but like just how it'll just keep adding on and keep building. So yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful, everyone. So let's, okay, yeah, this is a good one. Let's do this one. How has the choreography you've learned at UArts? So we talked about education now, but how is the choreography you've learned at UArts formed your ideas of dance? What have you learned? Has this changed your approach to dance classes? So the concepts from the choreographers, how has that shifted your ideas of performance, I suppose, and work? And Aliyah, I'll stay with you and start with you again.
For me, I think it was how detail-oriented each teacher or choreographer that had come in. It wasn't about the leg. It wasn't about things like that. It was about how can you make that arm? How can you reach out to the audience with, how can you look into somebody's eyes like you're looking at them? I think for me, it was just like, how can you bring in another spectrum? How can you like take somebody captive by just walking? Like, how can you make that walking your dance? How can you make that arm your dance? If that's what you're going to do, how are you going to sell it? So I think for me, it was just a matter of selling what your purpose is and what you're doing, what they ask you to do, but how can you make it even more articulate? How can you dance it? How can you make it like you're writing, like you're drawing, like you're painting? Just so much that you could do. So I think for me, it was just reimagining. And I know we keep saying that, but how can you reimagine? How can you make it your own? So I think it was something that each person and each choreographer and each teacher, that they worded it in a way that was specific for their movement, but it was also something that I can take into other classes and think about as I take my other studio practice classes. So I think it's just a matter of seeking what you're learning and then bringing it into full circle.
I'm gonna ask you, but I want you to, all of you, to include this. Sorry, I have some allergies today, so the tip of my nose is going nutso. But what about the sensory system? Was the sense of feeling? So I'm gonna attach that to this question. Aliyah, have you experienced any other shift in that idea through?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like a lot of moments I had, like, I would call it breakthroughs, because it was just, I felt free. I felt like it was another side of my artistry and of my dancing that I haven't experienced before. And it's like a lot of teachers have brought it out of me. It's something that was there, you know, how everybody has like something that you just have to let it out. So I feel like it was kind of like a breakthrough, that feeling of just releasing, of just letting it all out. I know they say let it all out on the dance floor. So it was just, I think for me, it's just like a breakthrough, just letting yourself go, not thinking about it, but just taking up the space, owning the space, and looking at your community and your peers, learning from them, sharing, embracing. I feel like that feeling is just unimaginable, and it just brings out another part of you that maybe you haven't realized you had in you. So I think that was what it was for me.
Thank you. Gracie.
So in regards to the choreography, I think that, you know, whether it's from a performance, like a pod, or in class, you know, combinations that we've learned, I think one of the things that has really kind of changed the way that I move and changed my style, I mean, I don't even want to use the word change, but evolved my style, is from Katie Swords Thurman. And she really taught me about your backspace and about your wingspan, and not just dancing with the limitations of your physical body, but expanding past that. So it's like when you reach, you're not just reaching to your physical limitations, you're reaching to the corner of the room and past that, through the building. And so that's something that has really helped me to expand my movement and to really feel like I'm bigger than I actually am in my movement, which I think is such a beautiful kind of like revelation for me in my dancing. And I think, especially with the work that we did in Mayol, which is the piece that you've set on us, I think there are a lot of things that I had learned and that I had really taken in and started to implement in my own work, in my choreography. And it's really, I'm trying to think of the words, it's so hard to explain, but you know, the work that we did was so internal, and especially with the solo that I had done and the duet that I did with Jamaal, it was so, like, the depth of it was so beautiful, and it was something that I had never really experienced in any other work before. And so starting to implement that in the things that I create and the things that I do, you know, really kind of shifted the way that I dance and the way that I move and the way that I create. So.
Thank you. Lucia.
Kind of jumping off of Gracie, it was my sophomore and junior year at UArts when I started working with Katie Swords Thurman and took a ballet class from Douglas Becker, and thinking about kind of like igniting my body from the edges, but also thinking about my body three-dimensionally is how I kind of shifted the way I think digested choreography. Because for me, I think I was always used to just learning it and not really like thinking about how I'm doing it in my body and like what I'm initiating with or what is receiving to make this happen. And I was in my junior year at UArts, or was it my senior year? I worked with Malik Washington as his entire piece. We were breathing to essentially make the music, but it was kind of to get us all together in this community, and we were dancing and breathing as one, and also making the music to the piece, which felt like our own language. And when I kind of was taking Katie and Douglas's like methods and kind of combining them in a completely different form and in a completely different piece with a whole new choreographer, I was able to think about, okay, my body three-dimensionally needs to be breathing and expanding my lungs in order to like generate this movement, because if I don't, I will pass out because I'm also dancing. Or like I found a new way of moving and a new way of dancing it without, I guess, like fatigue, but it was more, as you were saying, Helen, like sensory, because you're not looking at each other. You're literally feeling it. You're hearing it. You're like, you can feel everybody's like breath on like your skin, and you're kind of basing it off of that and like the timing of people's breath and knowing where it's going. And I think that helped me once I started working with you and Sarah in your piece, because I could start to allow myself to let go a little bit more and allow myself to like reach to those extremes and not have to like think about, oh my gosh, am I still breathing? Because like I have already been working, like thinking about it, and it's become almost like a normal thing that I still have to work on, but it wasn't now an addition. It's more like cohesive. And I think that that's just also something that UArts just gives you, because you're allowed to just keep layering these new ideas and new pathways on top of like a ballet or an improv, because then it all translates through. Because before I could never imagine myself improving, and now it's a less frightening idea because I feel like I have more things in my toolbox.
Yeah. Well, Jamaal, we still have to come to you, but I do want to talk about that layering. That layering never stops if you're lucky. So that's another tool that UArts is giving you guys. Like that layering is life. And, you know, you're not only layering on, but you're also peeling away. So it's that beautiful, you know, that both of those things also dance together of letting go or feeling more or taking on more or layering more. And all of that is, you know, is also the sum of you as a human being and what you are bringing to your art form. Beautiful so far. Jamaal.
I think for me, something that is standing out is I worked with Jesse Zarrett my junior year, which is last year, but I didn't get to perform it because I was injured. And he talks a lot about radical embodiment, which is like the idea of you physically embodying a structure that might be in front of you.
Oh,
So doing the choreography, but doing it as if you want to grab the ceiling and bring it down to the ground, or as if you want to bring the windows closer to you, or as if you want to do the whole piece as if you're a part of the floor. I think that clicked for me because it made me start to feel the choreography more. I could physically feel what the choreography is doing to me. And I think that's just something I need as a dancer. I need to feel like I'm going through something. I need to feel like I'm physically having something happen to me
yeah.
in order for me to feel like I'm alive. I don't know. I think that's the thing I love about dance, is it makes me feel like super alive. Yeah.
Well, Jamaal, it's also, you know, I totally understand that physicality, yeah, that because also as a dancer, I was very much of the senses. So that what you said about being a part of something, you know, like your environment, you're almost taking in,
Mm-hmm.
but also with that taking in, you're also describing the environment through how you're sensing this room or the other people in the room, or even how, going back to Malik, who is one of my dears. I knew him in Jacob's Pillow when he was so young, so I have a long, long history with Malik. I love him. But the idea, Lucia, you were talking about breath on skin. And so Jamaal, all of that sensory idea of making you feel alive, it's that you're sensing the energy, and or this is how I'm interpreting it.
Yeah.
Of what that is and how that affects your organism, right? And is that what you're kind of saying?
That's it.
Yeah, I get that. Totally get it. Yeah. I think that's why I've devoted my entire life to this profession. I can't get enough. I'm still trying to figure it out. So we've talked a bit how you've reimagined yourselves during this time. Have you discovered any books or any kind of reading that you could tell, perhaps one reading that you could talk about, or just say, or for as a suggestion? I'll start with you, Gracie.
There are a few that I've been reading, and they're actually from my classes. And so in taking a course called Love, Power, and Justice, we've been reading this book called The Source of Self-Regard by Toni Morrison.
Oh.
And it's interesting how in my other classes as well, because I'm taking theories of gender and sexuality and a couple other courses, and it's interesting to see the overlay in the topics and the things that we're in conversation about. And so with this reading by Toni Morrison, there's a section in it where it's talking about feminism and homosexuality and women and male supremacy and masculinity and all of this kind of stuff. And it's really beautiful the way in which Toni Morrison talks about it. And so seeing this overlay, sorry, there's a truck driving by, seeing this overlay in these two courses and the things that we're discussing is a really beautiful thing. So that's something that I've been reading.
Great recommendation. Jamaal, do you have something that you've read or anything that you recommend?
I haven't read any particular books, but something that I've just been mentally looking at a lot is I've been on Instagram a lot, and I've just been seeing a lot of different posts of ways that we can all work and to get justice for the people who need justice from police brutality, ways that people can be allies, ways that we can start having conversations about justice and about equality. And I think that is the best thing I could ever see on Instagram. I think it's the only thing I need to see on Instagram is people having these conversations.
Yes. So absolutely, that the conversations are actually happening, that allyship, solidarity, standing with each other, walking with each other, hearing each other, listening to each other, and finding out, as many people in the art world know, that we are better together, we're stronger together, and we need to be allies. I'm speaking of myself in this, and walk in solidarity and listen. And not just listen, but be active. And I agree with you. It's been heartening on Instagram to see that. And heartening in the way that perhaps we really will see change this time. Built, of course, on all the other people from our history that have been working for this. Built on our ancestors, basically. That perhaps we're ready now. It would be great. It would be great. Yeah. Lucia.
I have been completing some books that I was starting to read while I was in Love, Power, and Justice at UArts my senior year, and one of them is Toni Morrison's The Source of Self-Regard, and also Toni Morrison's Beloved.
Yeah.
I'm interested, since I write poetry, I'm interested in the way that she formats texts and writings and how she develops her writing. So we're kind of going back to this like layering idea. I really like the way that she formats her writings because she's using like really potent language, but she makes it easier to absorb and to digest. So I've also been reading like Rupi Kaur. My brother got me a book called The Sun and Her Flowers, and I've been reading those, and they're just short poems, but I kind of like to read them like next to each other because it's interesting how like everything is very connected, and I like that. So when I see text that is talking about racial injustices or feminism and masculinity and like how those are like social ideas and really constructs, and then reading a poetry book and how people are, you know, using just like a tiny dot of that to make an entire poem is really interesting to me, and it kind of like allows me to be creative, especially in some like moment like this where I can't be in the studio dancing all day.
Yeah, don't underestimate what can happen in this time, you guys. You guys, you know, this could be the magic hour, you know, as they talk about it, you know, with Twilight. Aliyah.
I've been doing some spiritual reading, so just spiritually connecting myself and aligning myself with my Christianity and staying connected with that, because sometimes I feel like you can get lost or you can lose it when you have like a lot of things going on. Sometimes you get a little foggy. So I was just finding some clarity in that and just really reading the word, and also have been seeing a lot of things on Instagram as well, as Jamaal said. So just also taking the time to really research and to not only know the things that have gone on in the world, but just really physically like meditating on that and like how can I bring it up? How can I talk about it? And how can I make sure that people are respecting it and listening? So I've had a lot of conversations with my high school that I went to, and we're having like Zoom calls, and we're really trying to bring everything to the light, and we're trying to make sure the educational system in Delaware is really strong and that it's inclusive to all. So I've just been having conversations with my peers from my high school, and the alumni have been working together to just make sure that everything's strong, because we just want to raise up the next generation. We just want to make sure that when other people come into schools that they can feel comfortable, that they know that their voice is heard. So I think spiritually I've been connecting to just find peace and to lift the spirits up and everything. And then also connecting with my peers from my school to just make sure the conversation is strong and where it needs to be to make sure our voice is heard. So that's what I've been doing.
Beautiful. Well, you guys can all vote, right?
Yeah.
You're all of age. So that's a big thing that your generation can do right now in the November election. You guys can get out there and, you know, start posting on Instagram. There's physical work you can do as well, because we all know how important, and this is really important, conversation we're having now is very dependent on what's going to happen also in November if we were to see some of these things through. Right? So that's something I'm actually working on as well, doing callings, you know, and making sure that everybody's registered. And so, yeah, I'm happy to hear from you guys that this is a part of your reality. I wouldn't expect anything less, actually, from you art students, and also, yeah, knowing you guys just a little bit. So let me hear one favorite or impactful memory. And it might be tied to a daily inspiration for creative life, or it could be both of those things. So I want to hear from each one of you a favorite or impactful memory from your creative life, even though you've spoken about some of those already. We have many. And then what a daily inspiration might be for your, that you can share. Oh, I need to say who we're going to start with. Let's start with Lucia.
Okay, so I'll start with the daily ones. For me, daily, I have to do something that like spiritually connects my body to nature. If it's just taking a walk or like going to the beach and putting my feet in the sand or standing on the grass and like touching a tree and literally grounding. I need that for my body daily. I think it just reminds me like that I'm human and how amazing it is to be a human being.
And to be alive.
And to be alive and to be safe and to be healthy and like have an able body to dance. Those are things that I'm really grateful for. So those kind of just allow me to like reconnect. As far as a creative memory that I like still hold very close to myself, it has to be working with you and Sarah, because that forever changed like my entire life, especially being a last semester senior and getting the opportunity to work with especially two really like strong like women like in the dance world, and seeing how you guys have like evolved and your careers have gone to like amazing places, but also learning material and hearing you guys like language a way of like moving your arm, or how like you're spiraling, and like how you say that like you have to put your body in a place of must. And it makes me just think about like
Not must. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. Must. It makes me just think about like necessity, and I don't know why like necessity is like the mother of invention keeps coming in my head, and it makes me think about that when I start moving, because you kind of in a nice way burned it in my brain that you have to put your body in a place of like extreme to like find that rhythm or that like feeling that like, wow, I'm like floating on like a cloud and I feel amazing when I'm doing that, even though this movement could be physically really exhausting and difficult, but it doesn't feel that way when you go for it like to the max. And that kind of changed the way I even like look at life now too.
Thank you. Aliyah.
So for me, I would say as far as like a daily inspiration, just to give yourself affirmations. So I made like, in my room, I made like a wall and I put Post-it notes of just affirmations, so that when I wake up in the morning, I see it, I look at it, I think about it, and I'm like, oh, okay, now I can really like embody those things. Because it's one thing to hear somebody say it, but it's another thing to really own it and to really hone in and embody it through yourself, and to acknowledge the things that you're worthy of and that you're enough. So I think for me, I really enjoy doing it. So I just write like a little saying or a quote or just a word, and just really meditate on it and really acknowledge it and own it for myself, to just gain that confidence for yourself that we are all enough. So we all hold space. You have purpose, you have space. Hold your space, stay grounded. So I think for me, that's something that I would say would be like a great daily inspiration. And then as far as a memory, there's so much. I'm gonna have to say this past January, attending the International Associations of Latin Dance, IABD. That was my first time ever going. I always wanted to go, and my teacher was like, "Oh, you have to go this year. You have to go." And then it kind of worked out because it was held in Philly, and it was at the University of the Arts. So it was just such an amazing experience to see so many Black bodies in one space, and so many people that came out from all over the world. I had people in my class that lived in Europe, someone that was from like Jamaica, and then it's just beautiful to see everybody coming together in one space for this big convention to celebrate dance and Black dance and all types of dance, all different styles of dance. So I think that was like one of the best memories for me. I think I found myself in the audience like tearing up at one point when I was watching one of the performances. So I think for me that was just a good experience that I will forever remember. So
thank you. Yes. I wanted to mention two writers that I have found very inspirational as well, along with Toni Morrison. But it goes along to Black Bodies in Dance. Is Brenda Dixon Gottschall,
yes,
wonderful writer,
yes.
and Sandra Fraley. And Sandra Fraley is someone I read was one of my books in my MFA, but she also combines a lot of poetry. And its embodiment and poetry and sensory system, two wonderful writers. And Brenda Dixon Gottschall, I've had the honor of being with her in panels and since I moved to Philly. So it's been really amazing to learn from her and hear her in person. She's really generous and so knowledgeable. She is the first. You know what I mean? In a way, like reading her book. She was around talking about this before we were talking about it.
Yeah.
My friend Teresa Ruth Howard who was on the show last, spoke a lot about her and the foundation she laid as well and is still laying. Jamaal.
I would say my daily practice, I guess I can sort of call this a daily practice, but every night I go on YouTube and I try to find like calming, relaxing sounds and then I just play them all throughout the night, and that sort of helps me go to sleep every night, and that's what I do. But I would say my one moment was...
I know there are many.
There are a few. I wanted to go, I think I have to go all the way back to high school. My freshman year, I did basically like a solo, but also a group dance to I Feel Good, James Brown.
Yes.
It was my very first time performing on stage. I just remember getting like a huge like standing ovation, people like clapping. It made me feel like the best dancer in the world, even though I could barely do anything yet. Yeah, I think that performance is what started me, and it was just like, I have to keep going from here. I have to keep performing.
That is beautiful. I'm going to tell you a little anecdote to that song. I danced to that song when I was probably 2 or 3. And it impacted me too. I remember, we were in Ocean Beach in San Diego in a tiny apartment that I've visited, but we had a 45 and it had I Feel Good on it, and my dad bought it, and we used to have, with only 3 in our family, but we had dance parties every Friday night. So James Brown was playing, Dinah Washington. That's when things got, well, I was so small, so I didn't get it, but that's when things got romantic. But I definitely danced also on my mom's hip to James Brown. Yeah. He affected me a lot too. But that overwhelming feeling of being accepted, right? For something that you just, at that point, it was kind of pure joy for you. As you said you didn't know too much, right? But that kind of energy that must have come at you, and the feeling you must have, yeah. Talk about seeds planted, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Gracie?
So for a daily practice of mine, I try to, similar to like what you said, Helen, about being outside every day and trying to be with nature. I try to improv for at least about a half an hour every day outside of my yard. And our yard, so my mom is very big into like wildlife and stuff like that. And so we actually have like bird houses and bird feeders and suet and all kinds of stuff for all of the animals that are like in the area. And so we have animals coming in and out of our yard all the time. And like we have bunnies, we have all kinds of birds, we have squirrels, we have like everything. So just taking a half an hour and just being out in our beautiful yard under the sun, having the sun beat on me, and just moving and being one with nature is something that I try to do every day. And as for a memory, I'm gonna have to go with Lucia and choose a memory that I have with you.
Thank you.
You know, it's really beautiful to have somebody who sees something in you that you don't necessarily see in yourself. And I think for a long time, I never really saw much in myself. And so being, you know, in the studio with you, and as I was doing the solo and having you so close to me, talking with me and asking me questions as I'm dancing and saying things to me.
Sorry. Everybody I work with gets that treatment.
No, but you know, it's amazing. And, you know, I remember one time when we were in the studio after I had done the solo, I remember just starting to bawl my eyes out. And it was because somebody had seen something in me and started to kind of like show me that reflection. And I started to see it in myself as you were showing it to me. And that's something that had never happened to me before. And so I just remember completely breaking down after rehearsal. And, you know, but it was a really beautiful kind of revelation for me. And it was something that has impacted the way that I live my daily life now, and the way that I look at myself and the way that I speak to myself. You know, like self-talk is such an important thing. And, you know, I'm starting to shift from that negative self-talk to that positive self-talk, because somebody showed me what they see in me, you know, and that's a huge thing for me. So
Thank you so much. Thank you, Gracie. Thank you. I wanted to go back to that post-it wall that you have, Aliyah. I think you could take a picture of that and post that for all of us to get some inspiration if you want to at some point. Plus, I got to tell you, I don't know if you know this, but Sarah Hilmer loves, we call them posties. She loves them. So even if you took a picture and sent it to her, she'd be like, oh, Aliyah. She loves Post-its. So, all right. So here we have, it's going to be the last big question. It's an important question every interview. I'm going to go around again. In supporting and building a more equitable community of equality, of equal seats at the table, however you want to look at it, right? What do you believe needs to be changed? Now, it's a huge question. So again, like one impactful idea from you where you could see where you think change needs to happen and the shift, okay? So I know it's a big topic, but to keep it within the realms of this interview. And I'm gonna start where I left off with Gracie.
There are so many things, and I think especially after
one thing.
I think that especially after you know, working on the show with you and hearing all of the previous guests that we've had and everything that they have to say, you know, I don't necessarily want to be redundant, but I think, you know, definitely just having the conversation and not trying to like brush anything under the rug. And I think a lot of times what tends to happen is there's this sense of entitlement and ignorance in people where they just kind of think like, oh, I don't fit into that category, so it's not my problem. And I think that mentality really needs to be shifted, because until you can realize we're all a part of this same community, like we're all a community, we're a human race. So there's no like, I'm this kind of human being and they're this kind of human being. Like that's not something that necessarily exists. So until that gets shifted, I don't really, it's hard to think that change will come if people still have that mentality of it's not my problem, so I'm not gonna talk about it and I'm not gonna deal with it because that's their problem. They have to deal with it. So, having the conversation and being like, okay, even though it doesn't apply to me directly, how can I still, help to make this change? How can I still, reach out to people and, figure out ways in which we can get involved, even though it's not something that relates directly to me, even though it does relate to you, I think that mentality just really needs to shift.
Yeah, and just piggybacking on that, the thing is that change happens as fast as you need it to happen. I'm a great believer in that. So when I keep hearing, well, it's going to take time, well, I don't buy that. And, I've been on this earth long enough to know that that's not really a true statement. It can happen as fast as you need it to happen. So my 2 cents. So sorry, I know I was asking you. That's okay. So when you have a talk show, thank you, Gracie. So Aliyah.
For me, I think it would be kind of going off of Gracie. I think it is a mental thing as well, because it's something that's like instilled in people, that they believe a certain thing is how it's supposed to be. This isn't how it's supposed to be. So I think it's something that we have to mentally check ourselves, like a mental check in on how are you really feeling about this, and be honest with yourself so that we can make the change. So I think it's a matter of being honest with yourself, and making sure that because you're honest with yourself that you are able to respect everyone else, and making sure that the conversation is being really, really, really respectful and really acknowledging your feelings, but also listening to everyone else's feelings, because the problem isn't black and white, but it's everybody. Like it's not
That's
just
right.
we can't point at anybody, but it is a matter of mentally checking ourselves, mentally speaking about it, not letting it being brushed off under the rug, bringing it to the table, making sure it stays at the table, so it's not something that's, once it comes, it can't just come for a year or two, but it's something that stays there and it keeps on building and keeps on getting better. So I think it's a matter of us not limiting where it ends and not saying, okay, we'll just do a little something here, but how are we really taking it? How are we really respecting and really acknowledging the issue at hand? So I think that would be how I would make the change, even though it may, like you said, there's no saying that it can't happen today, that it can't happen in an hour. We can't say that it'll take years, because it's just a matter of really checking yourself and really acknowledging the change. So
Yeah. Jamaal.
For me, I think the main thing that we need to do is dismantle the white supremacy that lies within the dance community, and replace those people with queer, black and brown people, or queer people of color, or transgender people, people that are non-binary. I think it's just time that we break this mold of one thing. I want to live in a dance world where I see everything, I see everyone performing.
Yeah, I say the real face of America. That's what I've said before. In the past, years ago. Yeah. And when I hear that, I translate it to equal seats, right? I keep bringing that up in a lot of these talks, but the fact that there's an equality, an equity, an equality, an ethics in casting, an ethics in how you build a dance community. Yeah, beautiful. Lucia. I love saying Lucia's name.
Thanks.
It makes me feel like I'm traveling.
For me, I think that it is taking that centered idea of the white like male gaze or even white female gaze just as it being a default throughout like society, especially also in the dance world, and looking at that and changing perspective and realizing that that needs to be decentered because that's not ever like one's center. That's not reality for everybody. And it's through like compassion and empathy and feeling like that feeling that of touching yourself is like, this is like, oh, that's another human being right there. And if I imagine myself in their shoes, how would I feel if I was in their position, or how would they feel if I was vice versa? And I think empathy and compassion and genuinely listening and not having, I mean, yes, hatred and prejudice is a learned thing, therefore it can be unlearned. And I think that if we've acknowledged that, then we can come to a place where we can all see one another and sit and have an actual conversation where people's opinions and actual life experiences are off the bat 100% valid. And I think that even what we're doing right now, and it's sad that we never got to perform your beautiful piece, but like knowing that this is just an extension and we're actually learning about one another not inside of the studio, maybe a blessing in disguise. And like this is how we're learning about who you are beside, like without just, oh, that's the girl that has like a great tendu. Like who is that person when they have to walk outside of the studio? Like what are the things that they have to deal with, or the trials and tribulations that their life comes with based off of how they present themselves in the world or how people might view them. And I think that maybe here is just like a tiny breadcrumb of like can hopefully snowball effect to like real change in our generation.
Exactly. And I want to be alive to see it too.
Hopefully
So,
we're alive too.
it gotta happen soon. I mean, I'm not 85. I am. I've been lying to you all. It's this amazing cream. Okay. So, my loves, I have to tell you, this has been, first of all, just connecting with you again, just filled my heart with so much joy and just such insightful, exciting young people to be in the world. It's just heartening. I want to go around, besides saying, thank you, it was a beautiful chat. I want to go around and see, rather than me asking you through emails what your tags were or whatever, if people want to find out more about you, I'd like to go around and find out if you have websites or a tag or whatever, okay? So if you want to offer that or not. So I'll start with Aliyah at the top of my screen. Do you have an Instagram tag or a website or something, perhaps, the stuff you're doing with your school?
Yeah, you can follow me on Instagram, Aliyah Clay, ALIYAHCLAY with 2 Y's. And as far as with the school, you can always catch me at UArts now. And I actually have a YouTube channel. So I have some of the work that we've done while we've been in quarantine on my YouTube channel. So you can find that under Aliyah Clay as well. So yeah, check me out.
Check you out. Okay, Jamaal.
You can find me on Instagram at Carefree Black Boy. Carefree Black Boy, spelled the same.
Okay. Awesome. Okay, Gracie?
So you can find me on Instagram. It's at Gracie.Spina with 2 A's. And I also have a YouTube channel. It's just my name, Gracie Spina. So
Awesome. Okay, Lucia.
Sorry about this sound. I apologize. I don't know what's happening. My Instagram is Lucia De-Poli, so it'd be Lucia, last name Depoli. I also have a link of my senior thesis in my bio of how I reimagined my thesis to be in the digital platform with poems and images that I've taken. So check me out if you would like.
Okay, I hear the sound. Yeah, mute yourself again. When you said it, I was like, I don't hear anything, and then I hear hammer, hammer. It was, a good background. It was framing your tag. So my lovelies, if you just stay with me while I do the end of the show, you can see 2 new sessions of Creative Vitality Jam sessions every week, Tuesday and Sunday. And on our next session, you will meet Chalvar Monteiro, a company member of Alvin, Ailey American Dance Theater. So please tune in for that. He's a wonderful artist. I actually have known him since he was a freshman in Purchase. He was in one of my first pieces, and now he's a superstar in Alvin Ailey. In the description box below, you'll see short bios from each one of these amazing young people, and you will also get some other information in that when it is posted. I want to say my eternal thanks to the dance community, resilient, beautiful, ever-evolving dance community. I am humbled to be a part of you every single day of my life. I want to thank the intern co-producer, Gracie Spina, who makes this program happen. I want to thank all of you amazing, bright, young people today in this show. You are our future. I believe in every single one of you. I walk with you as an ally, and I send you a lot of love always. So thank you so much. I hope to see you sooner than later. Bye.